Africa has overvalued minerals and by that same token, undervalued nature. That's me quoting you from one of your articles. How much are we losing actually if we don't change the drive?
I think we are losing ourselves if we don't change what that mindset is because we as the people, we cannot survive with the only money coming from minerals. We can't sustain ourselves. However much we get wealth in terms of dollars or francs, we still need fresh water. You still need clean air. You still need food. You still need a health environment for your own health. So it's a forced choice in that regard. But also in the context of Africa, not all African countries have minerals. It's a lie. Minerals are only found in less than 10 countries in Africa. The rest of the countries don't have minerals. So the idea that Africa is mineral rich is not even correct. So unless you're talking about DRC, Angola, South Africa, Tanzania, very, very few countries that have minerals that can sustain the economy.
Yes.
So basically the wealth of Africa is above the ground. And I've said that several times in general. But even rich mineral countries, minerals are not forever. It's a lie that diamonds are forever. They're not. They get exhausted. And you still have to find something else to do. So that's why really our wealth in terms of ecology above the ground, the fauna and flora are really what Africa needs to find an economic means for. But besides money, it can't be only about economics. We as a people, this is who we are. Nature, African natural resources, especially wildlife, define who we are as Africans. I don't know about you, but my clan, I have a clan. It's a black and white Columbus monkey. And I have a totem. It's a Statunga. I can't have a name Sebunya without those two. They define who I am as an African. And I've found that in so many African countries too. And by birth, I have to defend the habitats of black and white Columbus monkey. My mom is from an Ingri bird, this white bird you see on cattle. That's my mother's clan. I have to defend it by birth. And I can't marry someone from that clan. So they define even how I behave as an African. My wife comes from a cow clan. I have to like cows. So you can see the wave of interconnectedness we have with the nature as Africans and the relationship we have. So it's not only about the economics. There are so many other reasons why their culture is our heritage. But also it's our brand as Africa. What differentiates us from the rest of the world as Africans? It can't be because we are black. Because Brazil has more black people than any other country in the world.
Point.
Yeah. But so we can't say we are African because we are black.
It's more than that.
It's more than that. So these things define who connects us and differentiates us from the rest of the world. You say, I'm an African. Then, you close your eyes and you can see the fresh waters, the rivers, the waterfalls, the forests, wild animals, nature. And you say, wow, I'm a proud African. So it's that, there are so many other reasons. So it's our brand as a continent. So there are so many reasons, but economically it's more powerful because we are naturally connected to our aspirations, our development aspirations. Yeah.
Talking about our brand Africa beyond who we are, the color of the skin, there is also this climate change, which has been an issue of some years now. Africa contributes less than 3% to climate emissions, to gas emissions, but then we are the most hit, the most affected. And we're also forced into climate adaptation right now. So what are we not getting right, and what should we do?
A couple of things. Before I answer that question, let me also make a point from your previous question.
Yes.
That these animals, are most of them are only found in Africa, and they are African. So we cannot just make a decision whether they should exist on this continent or not. As a human species, they have a right to live on this continent, because these mountain gorillas in Rwanda, DRC, and Uganda, they're only found here, nowhere else in the world. So they belong here. They are Rwandese,
They're African.
they are Ugandans, they are Congolese. So they have a right to be on this continent. So we need to find out how we can live with them. But the climate change question is very interesting. Of course, we are victims. Other countries have polluted as they developed their economies in a way that was reckless. And we found ourselves where we are. The planet is heating. I mean, right now, Europe is unbearable. The summer heat, US, then the 40s, above 40s, people can't go out. So that's climate change. But the conversation I think we are having, the idea that actually we can sustain our way of life by adapting technology and other things to sustain ourselves, and somehow each continent can do it on its own. I don't see a global effort to do that. There are agreements, but I'm talking about the proper implementation of these agreements. For Africa, we need to be realistic about the conversations going on in the rest of the world. First, we are the richest continent. We have 30% of the global biodiversity on this continent. That 30%, the world needs it to sustain climate even at a bad level. So we've been victims, but that is in the past. I don't think we can hang on that. I think looking forward, we are a huge part of the solution to the planet's problems. And therefore the world needs to meet us where we are. And where we are is we have this 30% biodiversity of the world, but we need to develop economically. We need to have good roads, good schools, urban centers, industries for products. We need to produce food. So the world needs to meet us on our aspirations and how we can sustain the global biodiversity. This biodiversity is not African only, the global biodiversity. So the negotiations are not about we are victims or we are hopeless, we need your money to do things. But look, here we are with 30% of your biodiversity, but we need to develop. How can we work together and leapfrog us in the economies of the future, that we don't have to go through industrialization as they did, which polluted and killed everything. We don't have to. We need to acquire the technology, which mostly they have, to support that leapfrogging like we did with the telephone, from lines to cell phone. I think this continent leapfrogged more than another continent. We need to leapfrog on energy. We need to leapfrog on transport means, electric trains and other things. We need to leapfrog in how we plan our urban centers. Currently, we are chasing the Western world. We want to build in New York in Africa, London in Africa.
It's like we have to go through the same model.
Yeah,
as they
the
did.
same model. It's as if, as Africans, we don't have any other way of doing things differently for our own good. So there must be an African plan. You look at our plan, which is not bad. The Agenda 2063, that's the development plan for Africa, requires about just on the energy side, technology side, about 70% of the technology we need to achieve the Agenda 2063 is not in Africa. A big part of financing for that development plan is not in Africa. So Those are the conversations we need to have with the rest of the world. How can we do this? And the rest of the world has to take that responsibility and find a way of compensating Africa by the fact that we have 30% of biodiversity, yeah? And we need to develop in a way that is not damaging that. Currently we are. Our mode of development is chasing the Western world and it's damaging the ecosystem, not only for us, but for the rest of the world. So the question on climate change, we need to discuss it, in a way that, a win-win situation for all of us. But the facts we know is that Africa is going to be hit more than any other continent. It's a tropical continent. So we are going to be hit more than anyone else in the world by climate change. And we have had choices to do. The population is growing. We need to grow our economies. That is non-negotiable.
Yeah, definitely.
That's non-negotiable. But it's how we develop. What technologies, what modes, how do we urbanize? How are we going to feed the 2.3 billion Africans who are coming up in 2050? Yeah, 4 out of 10 young people in the world are going to be African. So how do we employ them? How do we educate them? And that population is already baked. Not even family planning programs can stop that. It's already baked.
Yes.
We already 1.2, and 70% we are below 30. So if each of us gets 2, each couple gets 2 or 3 children, we already 2.something billion. So that's already baked. But it's how do we feed it? How do we transport them? How do we house them? How do we employ them? But maintain 30% or slightly less of biodiversity of this world. That's the conversation we need to have with the rest of the world.
So African leaders need to negotiate with the mindset that we still have a bigger share of solution to bring on the table.
We can't play victim. Currently, it seems to me that all negotiations we are having, it's like we are victims. So give us money, compensate us. That's a negotiation that's not going to take us very far. But also, it's not going to help us to develop the way we want to develop. It disempowers us. Or we go to these international meetings with bows, give us money. Give us money. We should go and say, we are part of the solution. And you are not going to have a solution to your climate change issue without us.
Yes.
But you have the technology we need. You have the financial muscle we need for development. Let's plan and see how we can have a win-win situation.
A win-win situation. Talking about that, from your side, where you are right now, you've been calling African leaders to be on board to protect the nature and biodiversity. Yeah. Are you getting the desired response to that in terms of investment and policies?
The will is there. The will is there, but the challenges are many for African leaders. There are no bad guys in this conversation. I mean, I've met African sitting presidents. I've met former African presidents who are on the board of African Wildlife Foundation, and some are not. But we've had conversations, learning from their experiences. The challenges the leaders have are real. The population is growing. It's very young. Their election cycles are 5 years. Every after 5 years, they have elections. They have to find jobs for the young people. They have to grow the economies. They have to have food security. Those things for the current global economic model, you have to produce to grow. The current economic model doesn't reward a country like Rwanda that says, okay, I'm going to conserve Nyungwe. There is nothing I'm going to do with Nyungwe. I'm just going to protect it. You get no money out of that.
Yeah.
But if you export timber from Nyungwe, you can grow your economy. So our mode of development, that it depends on GDP. You have to produce to grow. Is not serving our leaders. The choices they make, either it's a protected area or it's a sugar cane. When they choose a sugar cane, it will employ thousands of young people. If they choose protected areas, it will employ about 100 young people. So the choices are hard for our leaders, but what I don't like about the choices I see our leaders are making currently is the idea that it seems like the idea is, let's develop, then we can take care of the other things. That's what Europe did. We know the outcome. That's what North America did. We know what will happen. That's what Asian countries did. We know what happened when you make that false choice. We are so lucky that we are coming from behind all these models. We know where they went wrong, and we can do what is purely an African model. And it should be easier for us because we are just starting. Yeah. It's harder for others now, like Europeans, to tell them, you know what, ban diesel engines or don't use cars when almost everybody has a car. It's easier for us to say, you know what, because it's fewer people who have cars, we're not going to import more cars now. We are going to invest in trains. It's much easier. So we have a huge opportunity to really leapfrog and not do the same mistakes. We can choose, our governments can choose, you know what, with the help of others, that our country, our ministries are going to be hybrid cars. It's a choice.
How do things stand now in terms of policy in regards of the protection of wildlife in Africa?
This continent has the best policies for wildlife and conservation. It's implementation. We are not implementing the policies we have on the book.
So we have the book.
That is where the challenge is. We have the right policies, that we are short on implementing those policies. We don't need any more policies. We don't need any more capacity building of some of these things. We just have to start implementing and learn skills as we go forward. I've had a raising awareness, training people. I think we've had enough of that. We have many trained young people. We have very good policies. I think now we just need to start working.
Get things at work.
Get things on the ground and work. Start doing what you think can work and perfect it as you go along.
Yes. So the future of Africa is the youth of today, actually, according to the proportion of the population that we have right now. Are you seeing a youth engaged in the activities related to wildlife conservation and wildlands? And what should be done to have more of them?
This morning, actually, I was speaking to the youth. I just opened their pre-conference for the young Africans who are now in Kigali, about 400 of them. They are here, they are conservationists, they are here to listen to what's going on, to contribute ideas they may have. So that's exciting that young people are here as part of this huge conference, which is for the first time Africa is going to be discussing conservation of our continent. We've never done that before. So it's exciting. But I think the young people, the idea is we have no option. Africa is the youngest continent. I come from Uganda. It's one of the youngest countries in the world. When you say Africans, you're automatically talking about young people. They are 70%. So, but their connection to environment is not as strong as it should be because of the models and the education we've had and the rewards you get when you are in agriculture and other sectors other than when you are in conservation. The other thing is that conservation has been over time, for a very long time, dominated by international NGOs and non-Africans. And Africans haven't seen models of other Africans in this sector. You turn on National Geographic, you turn on Discovery Channel and other TV and experts on environment. Very few are given an opportunity. They are there, but we see on TV. And so there are no fewer role models for these young Africans to get involved in the sector. But the mindset is really the factor that we need to change with our young people when it comes to conservation. You hear more of young people and old people, actually mostly my generation, saying conservation is for white people. Tourism is wildlife management is for foreign tourists that benefit. That if you are conservationist, you like animals more than people. So that mindset has affected and have had implications on young Africans really embracing the conservation sector. The conservationists themselves, as I'm part of that, we haven't helped. We are dominated by foreigners. If they are Africans, majority are white Africans, and therefore the young black Africans, especially, who are the majority of this continent, they don't hear Africans telling other Africans why this is important. They hear why minerals are important, why agriculture is important, why being a lawyer is so important, or a doctor is so important for the society, but not be here, and which is wrong. Hearing what conservationists are doing, conservationists haven't been able to project a positive message around our sector because of the dominancy of international folks who have done a great job on the continent, by the way, and also the science. The sector is so much driven by facts from science, and it has alienated people who think that I'm not a scientist, therefore I can't be a conservationist. I need to be an ecologist in order to be a conservationist. I'm not an ecologist, but I lead the largest African conservation NGO on the continent. So we need role models. We need to distort this idea that conservation is for international people who doesn't benefit Africans. There's even a hopelessness of people saying conservation is a land grabbing sector. It's taking land away from production and for Africa to grow economically. It's foreign driven, so it has a foreign agenda. But all these things have reasons why they are in people's minds, but that doesn't make them correct or the truth. It's a lie. But you can find facts because of the way conservation is being done on the continent to prove your point that conservation is foreign driven. It's a foreign agenda. Just because Africans have outsourced it to foreign donors and foreign actors. There's nothing wrong with donors and foreign actors. It's Africans who haven't taken our own responsibility to conserve the resources that is ours, that are benefiting us. I'll give you an example of health. You've seen Africans promoting health during COVID, vaccines or vaccination and other projects, major projects. But you don't see a lot of African leaders talking about the role of conservation. Yet, if actually conservation had been so successful, we wouldn't have COVID. So we are trying to invest a lot of money, which is okay and good, in vaccines for COVID without addressing the root causes. Conservation keeps zoonotic diseases in wildness and on wildlife, and so that humans can't connect them. If I'm successful in my work, I will stop future viruses coming out of. So I am part of the solution. So if the government is investing billions of dollars in health sector, the percentage should go to conservation. If African governments are investing in agriculture for food security, part of that money should go where rain comes from. If they are investing in hydropower projects, they should invest in where water sources come from, and the majority of those water sources have protected areas.
Talking about the issue of mindsets, especially for Africans, there have been some concerns that wildlife protection could be taking precedent on human, and case in point being the plan to relocate people to expand Virunga National Park. What do you say about that?
Actually, we're involved in that project. We are working very, very hard with the government of Rwanda here, which is designing the project and investing in that work. But that's not correct. The results are not correct. The activities, yes, some people move. How they move, where they move, and what they're involved is where the media or anyone else should question. But the current situation of economic activities for people, even in Virunga, is not sustainable for people. And I'll give you an example. If the Virunga Park stays as it is, the animals likely are going to be okay. But the people around the park, they cannot be okay with the current economic activities they're carrying out, which is agriculture. They have a few acres, each household. They have average of 4 to 6 people, children in their household. The children are depending on land. They're going to divide that small acre into between the 6 kids they have in a house to grow pyrethrum, which they're growing currently. We know the end game. It's not going to be sustainable. They're not going to address poverty. They're not going to develop. So what we are working with the government of Rwanda, and the government is absolutely right, is to answer the question, what kind of economy can people have in Virungas that is compatible to the natural asset they have, that can sustain them and develop their household incomes. And I'll give you an example, one of them, because now the World Bank introduced pyrethrum. What we are discussing, one of the things we are discussing with the government of Rwanda is introduce bamboo economy instead of pyrethrum economy. What bamboo does is that it's the food for mountain gorillas. We can't continue naming mountain gorillas, which assumes that the population is growing, and we're not doing anything with the space they live in.
And the feeding as well.
And feeding as well. But also, we cannot have economies of people outside the park, that pyrethrum, that has no relationship to nature and the environment people live in. Pyrethrum doesn't grow there naturally, but bamboo grows there naturally because it's found in the park. And you know what the bamboo economy can do to the people? You can produce your jacket from bamboo. You can produce this chair from bamboo. You can produce this table from bamboo. You can produce a toothbrush. You can produce a toothpick. You can build a house out of bamboo. So if we can get people to produce chairs from bamboo, have a factory that produces toothpicks, have a factory that produces a toothbrush from bamboo, a shirt from bamboo, pants from bamboo, that is an economy that has growth. It has a higher market to the rest of the world than pyrethrum they are growing. So it enriches, grows household incomes, but also supports the population of mountain gorillas. Because mountain gorillas are part of the rural economy there. If you go to the project we did of Sakora Group, the Silverback Lodge, Kinigi, it pumps between $300,000 and $500,000 annually into the rural economy. The Sakora community own that lodge. It's owned by them. The economy there, tourism is part of that economy. So we don't want to impact that, the mountain gorillas. But also people need, because of the population, we need to grow different economies. So that is, you cannot do that if everyone is owning one small acre and another acre and they're scattered throughout. So the idea of pre-consent of people, which the government has done, negotiating with people with pre-consent, which is an international acceptable human right policy and procedure, that people, I know, I've talked to them, they can't wait to move. Moving into eco centers, which the government is planning to build, where there will be good schools, where there will be good health centers, where there will be good security, where there will be good infrastructure for their lives. That, with this project or without this project, that's the future of Rwanda or any other country in Africa. Africa has the highest urbanization rate than any other continent. So what the project is doing in Virunga, to speed up that process, but do it very, very, very carefully in order to build economies that are compatible to the region. But we're not doing this only for mountain gorillas. Virunga controls almost the entire climate of this region. It's a water tower for many people in Rwanda, Uganda, and DRC.
So it's all in one.
It's so important for our survival. Not only mountain gorillas,
But the humans as well.
as humans as well. Most humans as well. So for us to do a project that sustains that ecological infrastructure is so important for the future agriculture, for the future water, for the future clean air, for the future rain of this region. Little to do with mountain gorillas, more to do with people.
Now the EPAC that is kicking off in Kigali from 18th to 23rd, what are major issues are you hoping to be addressed in the Congress?
Like I said, this is the first time Africa is sitting to discuss about conservation and protected areas. It's exciting. It has taken us so long to do this. So we are having different people. We are having former presidents coming here. We are having ministers, about 52 ministers are coming here. We are having 54 executive park directors coming. We have civil societies coming. We have financial sector coming. We have over 2,000 people coming to this city for 4 days at the convention center. And we're going to be discussing, first of all, where are these protected areas and conservation areas of Africa? What are they for? What are their current situation? How are they being kept or protected? What is working? What are the challenges? What's not working? Do we need all of them? Because also conservation, as a conservation, we need to come to the table understanding that we might lose some for Africa's development. That's on the table. So if we are to lose any, which ones? Which are more important that we must protect for so many reasons?
Yes.
So that's the discussion we're going to have. I'm looking forward. We're going to have a Kigali declaration after the conference, and that's where when the work starts. The conference is an event.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be here for 4 days. We're going to discuss. We're going to have recommendations. Then the work starts of mobilizing Africans, and I'm hoping that we're going to have an African model of conservation, because we know the current model of conservation is not working. If you look at data, it's not. If it was working, we would not be losing 34,000 elephants a year, or trafficked African wildlife through international wildlife trade. Elephants are half the population they were in 1970s. Probably not your lifetime, but my lifetime.
Yeah. How about the lions?
So the lions are half the population of what they were in the early 80s. So we know that conservation needs to change. There must be an African way of doing these things. We've been listening to the rest of the world with international NGOs and other world experts to do it. The science they bring here is right, but perhaps strategies and approaches needs to have an African dose. And that's what we are doing here, to come out with what is that story? How can it look like? What needs to be done? What investment? But it's not an African solution. That's why we are inviting also outsiders to come and join us. Like I said earlier, Africa's biodiversity is for the rest of the world too, to benefit from. So the rest of the world also is going to come, but we merge our ideas. We are going to be the majority, and hopefully we will come out with an African approach to conservation, an African needs for conservation, an African plan for conservation, an African perspective, and I'm so hopeful that it will have a higher dose of young Africans I addressed this morning, because they're so important core of our future. We do all these things for their future and their children's future. not our future. We are done.
Yeah, it's ours.
It's now your future
Yes.
that you need to get engaged.